All right, let's get to what I think a lot of people are excited for, and the part of this episode that I'm most excited for, and that's the Mountain West Conference Tournament, which should be electric. March 9th through 12th at the Thomas Mack Center in Las Vegas, where Jim resides. 11 teams in the tournament. 5 byes: Boise, Wyoming, UNLV, Colorado State, San Diego State. Round 1 games are already set. Nevada, New Mexico. It's a shame. I kind of wanted both of them to kind of get a shot at some of these big boys. Utah State, Air Force, and Fresno, San Jose State. Defending champ, San Diego State. They were the 1 seed. San Diego State was the 5 seed in 2018. Wyoming was the 4 seed in 2015. The lowest seed to win it was Colorado State, number 6 in 2003. Here's the trivia question. You might, I think you'll know this. Last time the UNLV won was in 2008. And who was the tournament MVP on that team?
2008 UNLV. Man, that one's going to escape me. Oh, was it Kevin Kruger?
Not Kevin Kruger. I think he was in 2007.
Ah,
the tournament MVP.
I thought, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense because he's their coach now. That's why it's the trivia question. But
yep. Which I was going to bring up after, which was why I had that. He was 2007, but
Okay.
Wink Adams
Wow.
was the tournament MVP the last time UNLV won it. This is probably it's as much optimism as we've seen around UNLV heading into the Mountain West Conference Tournament in a few years. Let's take a look at the odds here. And by the way, like, there's 7 teams in the top 85 on KenPom, and you have a healthy Nevada, you have a dangerous New Mexico team that can score. This is just a load of coverage. There's 4 teams that are safely in the tournament. You agree Wyoming's safely in now?
I think they're fringy. I think they'd be sweating if they lost to UNLV. I'd probably still have them in, but it's not like a surefire lead pipe lock.
Okay. But Boise, Colorado State, and San Diego State are certainly in. And there's teams that are talented enough to take this down, like UNLV with Bryce Hamilton. Could do it. Fresno State, even. I mean, they're going to grind you down. They're going to be in the game. They have a first-round draft pick on their team. Utah State even underperformed, but getting healthier. They played a lot of the top teams very close. They can make a run here.
They won that Myrtle Beach Invitational early in the year. Like they've won a tournament before this season.
Yep. You have New Mexico, who could just get hot, red hot. They don't really play any defense, and unfortunately not going to be play at the pit. And I don't think New Mexico fans travel as much as they used to. I remember going to the Mountain West Conference Tournament in Vegas back in the day. New Mexico fans were incredible. I remember I was at the Fredette game, and we scored 52 against New Mexico. One of the best live college games I've ever been to. But New Mexico can score. I don't think they're going to take it all down. But Nevada's healthy now. Look, I mean, it just gave a scare into San Diego State. They got everyone back. It's a team that some people said could win the conference before the year started. Dealt with some injuries, but now they're trending back up. Unfortunately, we're not going to talk about San Jose State. Did not glance at their 500-1. Indoor Air Force at 210-1. But Air Force can be tricky on their day. So this is just a fascinating conference tournament. The games should be electric. I actually think that, of the teams that are safety in, like Boise, Colorado State, San Diego State, it might be better off for them not to win this. Like, obviously they're going to try to win it, but like, it's going to be a grind to win this. And then you have the NCAA tournament coming up. It's like, win a game or two, get out, and because these are going to be wars. It might end up benefiting them next week, but the games are going to be awesome. Boise, the favorite plus 280. They're the 1 seed up top. They'll get the winner of Nevada and New Mexico. And then they would face the winner. If they win that game, they face the winner of Wyoming and UNLV. So let's start up top. We did just see UNLV beat Wyoming. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that, Nevada could beat Boise State. So a lot of intrigue up top. We'll get to the bottom next, but what sticks out to you up there?
Yeah, I think Nevada gave him a heck of a game in Boise recently. I think you and I talked about how that line was crazy high at 10, and sure enough,
that was Boise playing to clinch everything, and it came down to the final minute.
Yep. So yeah, I just the futures market for this was so frustrating to me because I was like, they're all so even, and it's really if you have a team that you have a read on here, there's going to be a good price on them because the market is such mixed opinions on what's the best team and how to price all these teams that if you shop around, basically any one of these squads you can find value on. So in that top half, I fear for Wyoming. I think that's a tough matchup for them with UNLV. They lost to UNLV, like you mentioned, and they didn't even get a good Bryce Hamilton game. He only had 3 field goals in that one. I think UNLV played it correctly where they guarded Maldonado and EK 1v1 and kind of just took away the shooters and said, all right, we dare you to like beat us 1v1 with those guys. And they weren't quite able to. Maldonado's dealing with his like eye issue. I think he's back. He's playing probably close to 100%, but maybe not all the way there. So I'm still seeing that UNLV Cinderella run with them hosting the tournament. I think they at least get to the semis and we see where they go from there.
You going against Wyoming? That's very rare.
Yes.
This year. Your pokes, but they have kind of faded a bit. I would have normally been worried about like the UNLV post defense doesn't really grade out excellently if you look at some synergies, but they played that great when they played Wyoming and just face, and they're playing awesome. And Hamilton could just take over a game at any point in time and go nuclear. Any thoughts on Nevada? I mean, like 100, like I think you could find maybe like 100 to 1 out there. My problem with UNLV, maybe I'm just stubborn because like you and I should have done it, but I didn't. Like they were like 28 to 1 like a month ago, and I didn't do it. And now
I was
like 9 to 1.
I went to the UNLV Colorado State game, and like in the week leading up to that, they were 28 to 1. And I was there with like one of the writers for the Las Vegas Review Journal. He's like, yeah, the hype's starting to go. And then they dominated that game. The odds were down. And they came back up and they were like 12 to 1. Like it just completely shifted off that game. I think the momentum behind, oh, wow, UNLV is back. So yeah, like I didn't want to take the 12 because the 28 had been available and now 12 is nowhere to be found either. So that's what happens when they just like get paralyzed and attached to the anchor to the old price.
Yep. A bias that you should get rid of, but it's still there at times. I mean, moneyline rollover, I don't think would pay more than 10 to 1 on UNLV because and you have to factor this in when you think about moneyline rollers because there's risk that Boise goes down. So that I think you has to play into it. Like Nevada could beat Boise State, and then all of a sudden, UNLV wins, and then you're favored in the semis. And so I don't know if you like UNLV, I would still bet the future. But Nevada has a ton of potential. And if their guards are hitting, they can play with anyone in this conference. So getting, 80, 90 to 1 for a little flyer, I don't hate it with the pack.
Yeah, it's like what I said about Marshall, where it's this team that they felt like they really underachieved and dealt with some injuries. And now like this is the time to salvage their season, win 4 games in 4 days. They're not like when they're healthy, they're not anywhere off the map talent-wise compared to the rest of these teams. Maybe Alford's a little behind in the coaching department than some of the other head guys in this league, but with the talent they have in the backcourt between Sherfield and Cambridge, Warren Washington up front holding it down in the paint, they are absolutely a candidate to go on a run. I don't think they're anywhere like in a different class than Boise. So that's a great price considering what the talent they have.
Yep. And as much as I love House, who's just awesome, and him and Mashburn can score with anyone, they tough shot makers, but they don't play enough defense and away from the pit. I can't see New Mexico. I could see New Mexico maybe winning a game or two, but I don't think they can put it together for 4 in a row. Would you agree there?
Yeah. I think the farthest they would get would be that semi, and then playing with basically 2 guys as their offense, you're going to run out of gas for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and they play super fast too, so legs could become an issue. All right, let's go to the bottom half of the bracket. Mentioned Colorado State is plus 360. San Diego State is plus 370. Colorado State got drilled in Viejas earlier this year, and then they were drilling San Diego State, and unfortunately for me, they blew a 20-point lead like 10 minutes ago, and then hit a buzzer beater to win it. So they split in the regular season. Colorado State, the 2 seed, will have to first play the winner of Utah State and Air Force. It's a tricky Utah State team. Might get some value on Utah State against Colorado State in that game. We'll talk about that shortly. San Diego State will play the winner of San Jose State, Fresno State, which means that San Diego State will play Fresno State on Thursday. And Fresno State just took them to double overtime at San Diego State on Thursday. Orlando Robinson is incredible. The San Diego State defense is incredible, but Fresno State can play some themselves. The game will probably be like 48-46 with a minute to go. Fresno will have a chance to win that game. So again, intriguing bottom half. Can Fresno State or Utah State make some noise here against two teams that are safely in the field? So maybe you get a desperate run from one of these teams that definitely has potential to make some noise. What are you seeing in the bottom half?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to it with the score prediction there, 48-46 with a minute left. Like, this is the opposite of the Southland, where like almost every team wants to play slow at a crawl, besides Nevada and New Mexico, who play each other in the first round. Fresno games are like close to auto unders for me at this point, because they are so slow and they're better defensively and they don't always feed their big man the way they should. But the fact that you have a lot of these slow teams means low possession games, which can lead to higher variance outcomes, which I think is good for taking a shot at somebody like Utah State or somebody like Fresno, who have proven themselves time and again to be as good as some of these at-large teams that they're facing. They just haven't gotten the wins necessary to be in the picture. But now coming down to a single elimination event, yeah, I think it's worth taking a stab at them, because they're not the same quality as Boise and Colorado State and San Diego State, but they're good enough to beat them like on any given night. So I wouldn't want to back one of those top dogs at 3-1. I'd much rather have Fresno or Utah State or somebody at like 10 or 11-1.
Yeah, it also helps with Fresno State, the fact that, I mean, now you're going to have to win 4 games in 4 days, but the first game is against San Jose State. And you mentioned they play slow, low possession game. So that helps too with the legs if you're going to get it done. San Diego State, I mean, maybe the urgency isn't there, but their defense is incredible, but they're also pretty reliant on like Matt Bradley going off. So if he has like an off shooting night, it could spell trouble. And like, he seems to be going off whenever he wants, but he's got to do it 3 days in a row against really good defenses. So maybe they're a bit vulnerable. Any thoughts between, I guess it's a 2-part question. Do you have a preference for either, you're going to get a little better price on, let's say Fresno's like 10-1, Utah State's 13-ish to 1 at one book that I'm looking at right now. Do you have any preference for one of those two if you wanted to take a long shot? And then thoughts on like Colorado State, San Diego State, if it is indeed the rubber match?
Yeah, I probably would like team in a vacuum. I'd prefer Utah State because I like their coaching. I think they can win in different ways more than Fresno State can. I think they can win basically one way. But the draw is better for Fresno. Like I view San Diego State as a little more vulnerable because how reliant they are on Bradley. Like you said, like that's another team that basically wins by shutting you down and getting enough points offensively. They can't have the random game where their offense goes crazy. So I would probably lean towards Fresno State just because of the path. But if we get Colorado State and San Diego State again, I have to lean towards the Aztecs. I know our mutual friend Jordan Majeski has joked about how Dutcher kind of owns Medved, but he has even that big comeback in Fort Collins was kind of evidence of it, and how he's able to frustrate a lot of what Colorado State wants to do offensively. So I would probably lean towards the Aztecs there if they get there. I just think they're more vulnerable to an upset in the quarterfinals, which makes this one tricky for me to bet futures. I'll probably be going game by game in this one.
Yep. Question for you, since I think you maybe went to one of these games. I know you watched them. Maybe, and this is another point for a UNLV future, but UNLV destroyed Colorado State, and then they destroyed them again. So was there anything to that from a matchup perspective? Was it just like fluky results? Is there something that UNLV did that really gave Colorado State problems? I mean, it was 2 blowouts. Pretty surprising when they did it again. Yeah,
I got the vibe. It just like the first half, especially, Colorado State could not get anything anywhere near the paint. Like, I don't know if UNLV just played a lot more compact and said, we dare you to shoot over the top of us. We don't want David Roddy to beat us up inside. They didn't give up any driving lanes. but UNLV got up early in the home game, and it was because Colorado State was just throwing up long jumpers, threes, or even long twos. I think UNLV is very acutely aware of their lack of true size, so they try to play a little more compact and force teams to beat them over the top. Now that caught up to them when Boise State was really hot a week later. I was at that game as well, but that definitely was an issue for Colorado State, and they have nobody to guard Bryce Hamilton. Like, he's too quick for Tanjay, he's too big for any of their little guards, and too quick for even Roddy as well. So I think he's a matchup nightmare, and then the way they defended Colorado State was really troublesome for them too.
Yeah, I mean, it just this. If you haven't been, like, there's gonna be a lot of people here listening that haven't been watching college basketball all year. There are some incredible individual players in this conference. I mean, that can just take over a game at any point in time. If you haven't watched David Roddy play, I think is he on draft boards? But I think he should, at least in my opinion, start creeping up onto the NBA radar. I mean, Matt Bradley is just a human torch. You got Orlando Robinson, who's just a freak at Fresno State. Bryce Hamilton at UNLV. You have the guards at Nevada. And I mean, it goes on and on. Just unbelievable talent. It's just a great Mountain West year. I'll end it with this question. Prediction on two-part question. Prediction on who wins it, and then prediction on which team of the four that we think are in, if we're going to assume that Wyoming is in, has the highest ceiling in March once they get out of this conference, and maybe just some of the matchup. I mean, like, Wyoming's going to provide matchup issues to a lot of teams that can't defend the post, and with what Maldonado does. But who do you think ends up winning this, and then who do you think has the highest ceiling in March?
I'll go bold and say UNLV wins. I'll say they do the little kind of miracle run on the home court here, but the Boise matchup would concern me. Like I said, I watched that and that was an issue, but they have the capability of beating all these teams. So I'll give UNLV the nod there. As far as highest ceiling, I'm going to go Colorado State. And it's because I think kind of what I was saying earlier, they can win games in multiple different ways. Whereas I think San Diego State kind of has to win with defense, and with Bradley having a great game, that's harder to do multiple times in a row against teams that are really scouting for it. Boise, they have an awesome resume, but they won a lot of close games this year too, partially because Marcus Shaver is like kind of a late game genius, just does not miss clutch shots. But I feel like Colorado State, with the combination of coaching, Roddy being a matchup problem, and a really good point guard in Stevens, I'll give them the nod as highest ceiling here.
By the way, yeah, I'm going to go out. I'm going to say, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Nevada wins it.
Ooh, wow. We're both getting bold here.
Nevada, UNLV semifinals. And by the way, we've talked about this. I think I talked about this in a previous episode. Teams that sweep the regular season series, they're 52% against the spread in the postseason, conference tournaments, and, that whole myth, you can't beat a team three times, but you have to look at every individual case differently. You can't beat a team three times. It's hard to beat a team three times, whatever. It's a myth. But, UNLV swept Nevada, but not taking too much from it. I mean, one game, Nevada didn't have Sherfield in Washington, and the other didn't have Cambridge. So, does the sweep mean that much? No. So that could be an incredible game. I would favor UNLV, but I'm getting a lot better price with Nevada. So yeah, I think it's going to get crazy. And then it'll be, I think one of these teams that's not in is going to win it in Vegas. And then it's going to be, and then if UNLV wins, that means Wyoming might have to sweat. And then it's going to be sweating for potential five Mountain West teams in the dance.
I love it.
Which is incredible. Any individual games that we didn't touch on, that are matchups that you're like salivating on, first round or potential?
I will probably back Air Force as a dog, even though I do love Utah State. I just think when that team is competent, they're playing like the weird Joe Scott zone type stuff. They're really frustrating to play against. And they had one performance against Utah State this year where they just totally frustrated them with that zone. Utah State had basically their worst offensive performance of the season. So Ken Palm's got that spread at,
13.
13. Yeah, I'll take double digits with the Falcons in that one. I think they hang around at least.
Yeah, and then Utah State. I mean, something to keep in mind here is like Utah State. Like that. I mean, the Air Force is gonna grind you down, right? Low possessions. Utah State's not extremely fast, but Utah State knows they have to win this to get in, right? And I mean, I guess they're on the far end of the bubble, but I don't think they have any chance of getting in that large. So they have to win this to get in. They have Colorado State coming up, and then you got to win 4 games in 4 days. So like, if you're up big late, like you don't push it, right? So it could open the back door if it's necessary at all. But something to keep in mind. I'm sure that they want to kind of reserve some minutes here.
And Air Force does not quit. Like if the back door's open, they will kick it down. That's the kind of team that will.